where to start or how far back to go. My mum and dad got married in March 1940. They were living in Richmond at that particular time. I was born in 1946, so I was one of the first sort of generation after the war. And then Richmond became really the sort of the music scene. We had mods, we had rockers, we had cafes, we had eateries, music. There was the big music scene, and there was a big fashion scene going on in Richmond, which had really sort of come down, I suppose, from London. But people came down from London to Richmond because of all the sort of clubs and things that were opening up at the time. And all the pop groups all seemed to come and play at Richmond. And it was just a thriving place to be a teenager at that particular time. I can remember being a bridesmaid at 2.5 at Auntie Florrie's wedding with Janice, and my dad holding me down because I shouted out I wanted to do a wig. And the minister told my dad to kindly take her out and do it, but bring her back. I can remember that as clear as punch. That's my earliest. And I can remember playing out in Larkfield Road with a skipping rope tied to a lamppost. I probably was only 4 or 5 then. But there was no cars, nothing. You know, you could be out in the road all day and no problems, really. So that's my earliest memory is 2.5. I mean, I started going to Sunday school when I was 3 at the Methodist Church in Richmond, and went through the beginners, primary, and then into the juniors, which probably finished at 11, and then it was seniors, but it obviously had some sort of name. And it was there that I suppose we got to hear about the youth club, really, through well, I suppose the people that were like 14 and 15 that went to the Sunday school class would talk about it, because it was a sort of a progression really from the Sunday school. I suppose it was about 1960. Well, I used to go to church on a Sunday, and when it got to Pam and I being teenagers, although we went to the youth club, we used to go on a Sunday afternoon to what was called Mrs. Mutter's, well, I suppose it wasn't an afternoon prayer, but it was a follow-on from sort of junior Sunday school, really. Sort of was like a senior Sunday school, but it was run by a very nice lady called Mrs. Mutter. But her son, he was at our youth club, and he played the clarinet in our youth club jazz band, and we called him Hot Lips Mutter. And that name sort of stuck, really. So Hot Lips Mutter and his mother, and I was going to say he played not the guitar, the clarinet. Most Saturday nights, really, we used to get invited to other youth clubs. So I was absolutely itching to go to this youth club to find out what was going on. And because I went to the church, and because my best friend Pam was a bit older than me, and she was already 14, they let me go early. So we both trotted along to the youth club and well, found out what it was all about, and started to go every week on a Thursday evening. So we used to turn up, and we used to take records along and put on the sort of thingamy-bob that was there, the record player that was put up in the corner. I was going to say, Richmond at the time, we were 14, and we were allowed to go to the youth club on our own. I don't know if we were allowed to go well, we did, but without our parents knowing. I suppose that was probably part of the appeal, really. I did go to the Two Eyes Coffee Bar with Pam one Saturday night. When we thought, oh, let's go to London on the Underground. I suppose we were probably 13. We were quite young, and you know, 2 little girls, but we did it. But one of the highlights of the youth club was the jazz band that they'd got there, and that featured a chap called Colin Prower on the drums, and because everybody fancied him. And then there was Hot Lips Mutter on clarinet, and his mother, Mrs. Mutter, used to take one of the classes on a Sunday afternoon. They were very religious, but he sort of, you know, came out of the mould. We must have had somebody on the guitar, but I cannot for the life of me picture who it was. I think obviously it was somebody from the youth club, and whether we had a pianist, I really don't know, but I just remember we used to go off on a Saturday night to another youth club and dance and whatever. We'd all used to go on the train if it was to Barnes, and then we get the train back. Richmond at the time, we were 14, and we were allowed to go to the youth club on our own. I don't know if we were allowed to go well, we did, but without our parents knowing. I suppose that was probably part of the appeal, really. Well, this is Colin Prower here, who was the drummer in our youth club jazz band, and all the girls really fancied him, especially me and Pam. And I'm not sure where Pam is actually on this evening, but this was a little sort of party shindig that we had round at Larkfield Road, and I asked him to come, and he actually came. And because Pam and I were jealous, because all the girls liked Colin Prower. I think all the girls did at youth club, because, well, that's what you did at that age, at 14, if there was a good-looking bloke. But he went out with a girlfriend of mine called Frances Marin, who lived, she lived in Queen's Road. And she went out with him for quite a long time, really, funnily enough. And I was very honoured when he came to a party at my house. It was just people of the youth club, but they sort of came to a party. The next one, I'm actually dancing with him. So, and it must have been Christmas, because we've got there's tinsely bits up there. So it could have been like a little Christmas sort of get-together, really, of our youth club. Oh, another one. But my friend from school, Anne, came over, and another girlfriend, Edwina, she was at school with us. I don't know who that is there, but that's me. And Colin again, who played drums in our jazz at the youth club. They didn't have a name, I don't think, probably Kew Road Methodist Church Jazz Band. But they used to play on a Saturday night quite often at the other youth clubs that were from Methodist churches in Barnes and East Sheen, Putney. That was about the furthest we went. So whenever they were playing, we all, as a youth club, used to go along and listen to them. And also my friends from Coombe County School, Anne and her brothers, well, not Alan never used to come, her twin, but Nigel, the eldest, they used to come over and go to all these hops. Well, we've got Edwina, Norma, me, sat on someone's lap. I can't remember what his name was at all, how he appeared. Audrey Parslow, she was at our school. And Anne. Oh, Anne Edwards that was, yeah. Actually, I might have been sat on Lowena's. Oh, there's Lowena. Oh, there's Martin Smith. Oh. Yeah, well, Martin Smith lived in the next road. This is Martin Smith. And my dad gave him some tutoring for maths. And I went out with him for a bit, and then Pam went out with him as well. But other than that, it's the little mob. Oh, and Nigel. That's Anne's brother Nigel, not her twin brother, but her elder brother, that's Anne. I don't think Alan ever, well, he must have come to some of these dudes. Oh, that was John Farrow, he was called. John Farrow with Edwina, Norma. He married a girl actually from the youth club as well, Teresa Bolton, after a few years obviously. Yeah, he used to come to the youth club with a chap called Vic Watts. And Julia, my friend Julie Gillis from school, she went for a ride on the back of this Phil Watts's motorbike, and we've never heard the end of it since. My mum never forgot that. She only went round the block, but yeah. So that was. But I think that must be Nigel. I don't know who that is. But Nigel, the eldest, they used to come over and go to all these sort of hops, I suppose, on a Saturday night. And then they'd have to get the train or bus back to New Malden where they lived. And we used to come home on the train. I can only picture us ever on a train coming back, perhaps from Barnes or Sheen. Quite how the drums got over to the... well, maybe we had to take them on the train. I don't know. I can't remember that. I mean, the clarinet was easy because it would just fit into a sort of a little black box. But drums were another kettle of fish, really. And if there was time, we would then go up to a coffee bar called Ross's. But it only depended on what time we got back to Richmond. Well, Ross's was a little coffee bar that was about 2 doors away from L'Auberge. Owned by an Italian chap, but quite a few of the youth club people who weren't into going into L'Auberge would go into this little Ross's. I mean, we wasn't often, but if we got an early train back, perhaps and there was time, or we'd just pop up to Ross's and then back home again. So that was probably for when I was 14. I'm not really sure when I got the jazz record. It was probably actually at the youth club time, because I remember Pam's favourite record at the time was the Dutch Swing College Band, an LP, and Best of All, Barbara and Bill. So they were LPs, and I got a set of small Acker-built ones with ACKER, which probably had 2 or 3 tracks on each one. I can picture they were white with black writing and his black hat on the top bit. Yeah, that must have been when I was at youth club. I got those, and any other jazz ones that I acquired. Oh, and I got the music to play Petite Fleur. I think that would have been about that time, which was Chris Barber's Monty Sunshine, but I played it on the piano, as I played the piano at the time. So from Acker-Bilk, and Pam used to like Edith Piaf as well. I remember keep putting that on at youth club, on the jukebox. And then after our little record session, we'd often have a discussion, but we'd always end with prayers, because it was a religious youth club. And finished at 10 o'clock, and Pam's dad used to come and collect her and probably drop me off, or my dad used to come over and meet me, perhaps bring the dog and walk back. So that was Thursday nights at 14, 15. Well, this is me. Oh, that's Patrick, that's Rita, and that was a chap called Jack, but you can't really see him. And this was in my room in Richmond. So and also it's got Christmas things, so maybe they came over with some Christmas cards or Christmas presents or something because we did swap little presents at that time.
And who are the people? From what group are they?
They're not from any group, Howard.
They were
he was a window dresser in London.
Oh.
I don't know what these two did. They were just friends of his. They came over to my house, I suppose. Okay. I probably asked them over. Oh, that's me. You're looking onto lampshade. Girl sitting on someone's lap there. Boy there. That could have been one of the parties perhaps we went to from school to one of the people's parties. It's not at our house. Next one is my she was a good friend at school, Norma Gems and me. And that's Norma having her first cigarette. Yeah. Or looking at it. Oh, there's Loana. Pam and I used to go on a Sunday afternoon to our fellowship class with Mrs. Mutter. And then we'd go on to church in the evening. Oh, well, once a month after that we would go up to a place called Grove Road, and we would do a service for the residents up there who, they were all a bit senile really. They used to fall out of bed and be sick, but we used to do that once a month. And then another month we would go to the Star and Garter home in Richmond and we used to do a sort of a, I think we used to sing a few hymns there. They were a bit more with it. the people there. So that was a Sunday afternoon, and then we'd have a quick tea somewhere, whether Pam came to me or I went to her, I can't really remember, but you used to go to church then Sunday night, and all the youth club used to sit together on the right hand side, it's sort of in a group, and then after that finished, and then Pam and I used to hop on a number 27 bus from outside the church to Twickenham and go to this den of iniquity called Eel Pie Island.
From the age of 14?
Well, 15, yeah, probably, because I was still at Coombe County when I went there. I must have done because of Wendy Hale. She was at Coombe County. Yeah.
What's her?
Well, she's the one that never used to wear knickers. I don't quite know how we sort of got to hear about Eel Pie Island, but there was probably articles about it in our local paper, the Richmond and Twickenham Times, I would imagine, and I suppose word of mouth really maybe from youngsters or maybe from... I don't remember anybody else from the youth club going though. There were people from school there, but I mean there was always probably something in the paper, perhaps about goings on, what was going on and whatever. Well, they called it the Den of Iniquity because there was lots of long bushes, so there was sex going on in the bushes. Oh, well, I presume. We only get told this, so we presume, but I'm sure there was. Obviously, a lot of drug taking going on and drinking. But we just used to walk from the bridge straight along the path and in. We didn't look right or left to see what might have been going on. As well, we were too scared, obviously, to go off the straight and narrow, really. I think maybe that was our church upbringing, perhaps. Maybe, I don't know, possibly, but we started then going every Sunday because we realised how good it was. But I don't think my mum and dad knew where I was. Well, they might have had an inkling, but I wouldn't go and say, well, I'm off to the island now, Eel Pie Island, because they didn't really think it was a place that I should go to. But I reckon in time, they probably guessed that perhaps I'd been there. So we used to get off the bus at Twickenham, and then we used to have to walk a little way, and you get to this funny old iron bridge where there was this little old lady dressed in a cloak, and you used to have to pay a toll to go over the bridge. I mean, some people say it was a penny, some say twopence, some say threepence, but it wasn't very much. And then she used to stamp your wrist, so that if you wanted to come back out, you could, and you could get back in without having to pay another toll fee. So that we did that, and then we walked all through the greenery and into the to the dance hall, which was as rickety and as old as they come. Yeah, we used to go in and pay. I don't ever remember paying to go in, but we must have had to pay, obviously, something to go in. And you go in and you walk across the floor, and it was so bouncy. And then we put our bags down the second post along, and sort of just danced around our handbags really. And any blokes that were there might have joined in, or we might have joined in with them, but probably didn't speak to them, just danced really. Yeah, there were lots of sort of people at Eel Pie Island that sort of stood out really, and there was a girl there, I think her real name was Heather, but she was called Fluff because she had all sort of permed hair. And in fact, I've got this book on Eel Pie Island, and there's a picture of her in there. Well, I think there's a couple of pictures, and also she was mentioned on the television as well. Well, I think she was interviewed at How She's Looking Now, which was on not so long ago. So she's obviously still alive and kicking. There was Fluff. I can't remember anybody else's. Not to stick out like that, Fluff.
But what sort of bands would you have seen over there? You saw the early you saw Cyril Davis, but later on.
Well, Cyril Davis, yeah, but later on I didn't go when it changed into more rock and stuff, which is when you probably went. That wouldn't have appealed to me. I went when it was like the rhythm. It was real rhythm and blues. I might have gone once when there was a bit of jazz, but I wasn't. I think I'd grown away from the jazz and gone on to like Cyril Davis and Long John Baldry and Georgie Fame. But we also was Brownie Terry and Sound Sonny McGee one night, and they used to have some of the American blues singers, who I'd obviously never heard of, would play a set, if that's the right word, sit up on the stage and do something. Oh, we had Long John Baldry and the Hoochie Coochie Men, and Cyril Davis was there quite a lot, and the All Stars, and Georgie, I don't know, I think Georgie, I can't remember Georgie Fame being there, but I'm sure he was, and Chris Farlow. But one night we were there, and I think it was Cyril Davis got Rod Stewart up on the stage. Well, he was just like a member of the dancing crowd like us, really. But anyway, he got up and sang on and was really good with his gravelly voice and that. So that was quite a good evening. And the Stones played over there, but they weren't really, well, I suppose they were sort of rhythm and blues, but they were making their name elsewhere really at the same sort of time. Down the Station Hotel, they couldn't be everywhere because it was all on the same night, Sunday nights. But it was really packed out over Eel Pie Island. I mean, you know, you were lucky if you got a space, you'd have to stick to it because it was. And apparently they had the biggest selection of whiskey in England behind the bar. So they keep saying anyway. Not that I don't think I ever went to the bar. Quite how I got a drink, I probably didn't. I don't remember having a drink. Oh, we might have bought one and shared it, I suppose, between us, a sip here and a sip there. I really can't remember actually ever going to the bar and getting a drink. And I can't imagine anybody coming in round taking orders, because they would have probably fallen over with the floor bouncing about, or the drinks would have slipped off the tray. Yeah, well, that's one to think about. Bringing that up. And there used to be a chap called Rowan who was a really good dancer. And because when it was jazz, they used to do skip jive, which Pam and I used to be quite good at. And because then it changed to sort of rhythm and blues, and it was sort of a different sort of dance, really. You sort of stood and wobbled your head about. Pat your foot. I don't think it had a name really, but there we go. That was a Sunday night. I think some people used to go on a Saturday night, because I had a friend from school called Wendy, who had been at an American school, but her mum moved her to Coombe County, and I used to sometimes go there for tea on a Saturday, and I'm going over the island tonight, and she'd say, I don't know what to wear, but I won't wear any knickers in case I meet anybody. And she used to go off in her jeans and a duffel coat, because duffel coats were the height of fashion. And then I'd probably see her at school on the Monday to hear what happened, really. Well, that was, yeah, so I was probably, obviously still at school then, so I was probably 15 I should think, probably. I mean, my mum was a staunch Methodist, I mean, and they used to go to church every Sunday morning and Sunday night and that, so I never specifically said, I'm going to Eel Pie Island tonight, but they may well have guessed after a while, because probably my dad used to meet me off the bus when I came back, because we all used to have to get a bus, obviously, from Twickenham back to Richmond. And then I'm not sure how Pam got home. Or she might not have moved, she might have still been living in Richmond then. If not, her father used to do the running about. And my dad perhaps met me with the dog, having the dog walk down when we got off the bus. And then back to school the next day and probably recounting all what was going on. And then obviously I must have left school that summer, and I must have still been going to the island then, I suppose. Because I went to Kingston Tech then in 1964, I think. to do business studies and typing and shorthand and posh secretarial course. It was called an OND in business studies. So I did economic geography, economic history, accounts, law, A-level English, shorthand and typing. I used to do typing to music. And shorthand, we did, high speeds, we did, yeah. And I wrote a big long essay on coffee. We had to do I suppose, like they have to do at uni now, a dissertation. We had to do so many words, and I did it on coffee. And I met a girl there, well, Pam was there, and another girl, Moira. And there was another girl, Jeanette Hayward, who I became quite friendly with. She lived at Chessington. Her mum was quite strict because she used to go. But she always used to miss the last bus home and have to stay with us. But I was at college then, so still going to the island. Maybe not as frequently because other things were coming onto the horizon, I suppose. Really. But I remember Jeanette. Well, in the holidays we were told to get a temporary job, which I got a job at World Record Club, which was in Richmond on the Green. 3 weeks it was at Easter, and I enrolled at an employment agency and got this job round at, well, I think everybody got a job round there, and it was only stuffing bits in envelopes, but it was quite a fun because the woman in charge, she was real cockney and had everybody in fits. And it was Jeanette who got me into Ready Steady Go first, because she had a friend who was married to someone called Clive Arrowsmith, who, I don't know if he was like the director or the producer or floor manager, but he was to do with Ready Steady Go, and he gave us these 2 tickets for us to go, and we were still at Kingston Tech then when we went up to that Ready Steady Go. It was at Holborn. No, Ready Steady Go hadn't moved. It was at Holborn. So that was quite easy to get to by tube really from Richmond. Yeah, we only went once with her. I think, and that must have been when we came out and Herman's Hermit was standing at the bus stop waiting for a bus. Although he was number 1 in the hit parade, he still had to get a bus back. And we sort of dispersed and came home. So that would have been a Friday night. And then I know Jeanette worked in a shop on a Saturday, so I never saw the sort of a Saturday. But she did appear on the scenes a few years later up in L'Auberge. She was pregnant then, actually, at the time. With some chap called Billy. I don't ever know what happened because we didn't see her. L'Auberge, I suppose it was a sort of a coffee bar that opened up in Richmond because coffee bars were the thing. And you were only somebody if you went to L'Auberge really for a cup of coffee, which obviously I did and lots of other people did. But it had an outside terrace where you could sit and a lovely tree that was lit up. And then you went in and there were seats and that. But there was also a little glass bit on the side, which was called the fishbowl, and you had to sit up high on a stool, and you had to, because everybody tried to get in there, so you were often squashed in there like this, couldn't move. Once you'd got your sort of spot, that was it, you stayed. And we used to often, we would say, we'll meet you in L'Auberge, and you'd try and meet in that bit.
Let's go back to L'Auberge and talk about Big Steve.
Oh my word, yeah, Big Steve, well, Big Steve is a person that used to come into L'Auberge he'd got this girlfriend, young girl, Ross, and her hair was, it was black, backcombed to the nines, and she used to wear this palest pink lipstick and used to cling on to him. I mean, she was probably only about 13 or 14 and he was, well, we probably thought he was a lot older than what he was because he was older than anybody else that used to go into L'Auberge. But he had a great big yellow Vauxhall car or van or estate car, it would be. And on a Saturday night you'd hear there'd be a rumour about a party and, oh yeah, there's a party at so-and-so. So Steve would pile us all in this car and take us to wherever the party was. And that's when I ended up sitting with Eric Clapton in the back of the car. And I think we went, I can't remember whether it was Kingston, we went to a party. But whatever, because you all pile out the car, into the party, get thrown out the party because you weren't invited, and then you have to go back to L'Auberge again. So, you know, you're gone about an hour from L'Auberge, and that was quite often on a Saturday night, that would happen. But we used to think, whether he did or not, we thought he had a gun in his glove compartment. I mean, it might have been a toy one, it might not have been, but he obviously opened it once and must have got it out, perhaps. I don't think it took much to get him cross. And so you know, you sort of, you were a bit afraid to cross him in case he got his gun out and shot you. But, I mean, he might not have been a real one, who knows? Who knows? But that was the story of Big Steve. I don't ever know what happened to him. He's probably not around. Well, he might be. No, he won't be around now. No. Well, he could be.
Did you ever know an American John?
American John? No. I don't think so. Well, not.
I can remember an American John, but that's. But,
no, Pete the Pill. He was a friend of. Well, he was a friend of everybody's really, but he used to go up London on a Saturday night all night and then take lots of pills, I suppose, and Sunday afternoon he'd be sat in L'Auberge inside with his head down, having his sort of come down. These are all people that used to meet up in L'Auberge, which was the coffee shop that we used to go to. There's a chap called Pete Fuller. That was Jeanette Hayward, who I actually sat next to at college at Kingston Tech. And she was a very good friend of mine who, it was her that I first went on Ready, Steady, Go with. There's me. Well, at that time, duffel coats were the height of fashion. And I've probably just got my duffel coat there. I don't know what I was wearing with it. Oh, bunny shoes. I don't know who this one is. He's got somebody called Graham, but I can't remember. Graham. I recognise this girl, but I can't put a name to her. That must be Keith, the one sitting down, I think. And then I've got somebody at the end called Bugs. I don't know who that is. Somebody called... Oh, Roy. Oh, yeah, that Roy. Graham. I'm sure she was called Sue, but I wouldn't bet my life on it. With my duffel coat, I was at college. Well, I met Jeanette at college, so it would have been within the 2 years that I was at Kingston Technical College. 64.
65.
65, that sort of. Yeah. Oh, this is a little friend of ours, Paul. This was obviously taken in my house because there's the piano. Well, he used to go to L'Auberge and he was a friend of Jackie's and mine, really. He's quite a nice little chap. And he lived over in, not Sheen, a bit further on from Sheen, that sort of area, going towards Hammersmith. I don't know, I can't remember his surname, but he was nice. There was always one chap in there called Robert, who he lived in Ham, and I got, quite chatty to him. At that particular time, he was working in Dickens and Jones in Richmond. But when I was working at Fenwick's, he was working in Dickens and Jones up in Regent Street. And I think he must have come to Ready, Steady, Go with me at one stage. And through him, he had numerous friends. There was Jack, who lived in Putney. And there was a Patrick, who lived at Jack's. And then there was Roland and Paul, which I've told you about before, that lived right locally. Roland and Paul used to go into L'Auberge. And Paul, he was quite friendly with Long John Baldry. Who else was there? Well, that Peter Standen was gay, and David Bilton was gay. I felt safe with them. Well, yes, I mean, and they were so good fun as well, and you didn't feel, I don't know what the word would be. I mean, I was probably quite, although I did all these things, I was probably quite staid, really. So I felt safe with them. If I went out with them, I knew nothing would happen, which is fine. There was a couple of gay clubs that I went to, one in the Queen's Road, which you go on a Sunday afternoon, you only get a coffee. And I used to go there on my own sometimes because I knew I'd be somebody that I know. And there was one in Charing Cross Road that we used to meet up with. Carol used to come. Carol and you know, we didn't think anything of it really, because it was only records. Disco and cup of coffee and... But that was... I walked home from there, Charing Cross Road, to Richmond one night. And that was a long haul. I think we got a taxi at Hammersmith in the end. So that's, you know, funny people. And L'Auberge was run by... Well, it was run by a chap called Giorgio, I think. But there was a blonde girl called Carol who was more or less always behind the counter. And everybody's desire was to work him or have a shift, wash up or whatever in L'Auberge. And I managed to get well, not a job, because you only do it ad hoc basis, but I remember washing up out in the back bit. Anyway, Carol, that was fine. She was into music and she knew everybody. And down the road from L'Auberge, was a little road called, my doctor's was down it, Ormond Road it was. Right down the end was a little hall called Sandover Hall. So we went into L'Auberge one Saturday night and we were told there was some music going on down at this Sandover Hall, which Carol had booked the hall and this group to play in it, or I don't know about a group, but some people to play in it. And would we all like to go? Well, I don't think many went, but Pam and I went, and I think Moira might have been with us. And we went down there. Well, it transpired it was Eric Clapton, and there was a chap called Reuben Archer. He didn't stay with the band, but it was, and I don't think that was the week Mick Jagger was there. That might have been the next week. But anyway, there was Eric Clapton and a few people busking about on their guitars. So we stayed and watched it. And then the following week...
What were they called, sorry?
Well, I don't know if they had a name, actually, as then. The Ricky Tick. Oh, no. Well, they might have called themselves the Ricky Ticks, but, I mean, that name didn't last. But anyway, the next Saturday we were all summoned to go again. But there was Brian Jones, Mick Jagger, all the Stones, all assembled. And they played. And I think they played only for a couple of weeks. And then the next week, Sandover Hall, that had finished. But Rolling Stones were down opposite Richmond Station at a hotel called the Bull and Bull. Well, no, that's what it was called, the Station Hotel. I think they were. And so that became our regular then on a Sunday night, to go down and see the Rolling Stones. Could have been 63, 64. I was still at Coombe County. Or Kingston Tech. We used to go down on a Sunday night. We used to all put our coats in a cloakroom. Pam had our best new green leather coat stolen. Remember that. And but the next week her mum had bought a new one. So that was all right. And so yeah, that went on for quite a while really, and that progressed from that station hotel round to the athletic ground then, which became the Crawdaddy Club, which is where the Yardbirds then had their sort of residency. And also, well, Georgie Fay and Chris Farlow, they all used to come there. They'd take their turn on a Friday night. And I had a friend called Jackie Robertson, but she used to work down the Crawdaddy Club on a Friday night in the cloakroom, and if it was really busy I would help her. Well, she was a hairdresser. And she eventually married Steve Earle from Fulham Football Club. She only just started going out with him around that time. Well, no, she was going out with someone called Keith at that time. But a little bit later on from that, she then met this Steve Earle, and obviously Yeah, they bought a house over in Teddington and whatever. Oh, well, there's Jackie again with a chap that I went out with called Steve Bide, who's mentioned up on the Eel Pie Island site. I went out with him only for one day. Packed him up the next day. So that was Friday night.
But you also knew Keith Ralph's...
Well, Keith Ralph, yes, his sister Janie was in our guide pack at Guides. And so we used to hear a bit about what was going on through her, really. But I don't think she stayed at Guides as long as I did, really. Not that I stayed to the end, but I don't know what happened to her. I mean, they come and go, really. But I did get a good camping badge for camping. I remember that.
But how long did you do the Crawdaddy stint?
On and off, probably for about a year. And then also at the athletic ground, they used to have this thing at the weekend, once a year. Richmond Jazz and Blues Club. That's right, and the year the Rolling Stones were on, I had to arrive at this Jazz and Blues Club. They were a lot of us from the station hotel. We all came in a coach, and they filmed us getting off the coach, going to see the Stones play at this Jazz and Blues Festival. Don't ask me what night it would have been a Friday, Saturday or Sunday, probably the Friday night maybe. I can picture that coming off the coach. I thought, why have I got to go up there to get a coach all the way back to where I live? But never mind. That was and that went on for several years, that Jazz and Blues thing, and then I think it moved over to Windsor. I don't know why, but obviously maybe they needed the athletic club for something else. It was used for the horse show every year as well. Richmond Royal Horse Show, which I used to go to and see the Queen and all the Olympic riders. But that was when I was younger. As a Saturday job, I got a job in a shop. It was called F Cave. Well, it would be like today's convenience store. Sold absolutely everything in the smallest possible space. And I worked in there on a Saturday selling sweets. I was on the sweets and cigarettes side, and there was another lady or somebody on the other side. I quite used to enjoy that. But everybody from L'Auberge would come over, because it was their local shop really, to get their cigarettes or their sweets or ice cream or whatever. And I also, in the holidays, would work there perhaps of an evening or an afternoon, and used to get paid, which was quite good. And then on a Saturday night, you used to have to cash up and make sure it was right, because if it wasn't, you had to have it taken out your wages. It was Mr. and Mrs. Williams who owned the shop or ran it. Mrs. Williams was an alcoholic. I think she also had cancer, because she was quite ill at times. But she would summon me upstairs to go and get a bottle of drink, and I'd have to leave it in a bucket in the toilet downstairs, and she'd creep down and get it. But some days she'd dress herself up to the nines and go and buy one herself. And they had two great big white dogs. They also had an au pair girl that used to do the cleaning and take the dogs out if Mr. Williams didn't take the dogs out.
So when would this have been? What year?
Well, I was still I probably was at college. I would have been doing a Saturday job when I was working at Fenwick. So it would have been when I was at college. So from sort of 61, 62, 63. I was probably there a good couple of years, 3 years. Yeah, next to L'Auberge actually was Richmond's hottest sort of music shop, really, which we would often go from L'Auberge in and listen to a few records, where you were put in this great big cubicle and given it ginormous headphones that you would put on, and they'd put the record on and you'd stand there and listen to it, and then you'd take it back and either buy it or perhaps swap it for something else. They also sold musical instruments, though, I think, in Potters, because I seem to remember getting a bag to put because I was playing the piano at that particular time, to put the music in, a proper music case. But and then next door to Potter's was a lovely man shop. That was probably a bit later on, the Ivy League or the Ivy Shop, which used to sell all the shirts that the mods wore. Lovely, beautiful shirts. And then a bit further up the hill was the chemist, Hayward's, where Oliver Hayward, who we all used to fancy, he lived. And he used to go to school with Alan, Anne's brother Alan, at Coombe House. So if he got on our bus in the morning, a 65 bus, oh, that would be wonderful. With his cap on, with his friend If. So, yeah. We had this funny boy with a funny name, we called him If. I don't know what his name was. If. But yeah, Oliver Hayward. Oh, and he had a friend, and his friend was, oh, blimey, who went out with Susan Pawsey. And it was Susan Pawsey's brother Tim Pawsey used to leave his bike in our alleyway when he went to work and used to climb in the window to see us. Guy Otten, that's it. Yeah, Guy Otten and Oliver Hayward, they were pals. Susan Pawsey. Well, I don't know what happened to her.
In what association is she with?
Well, she was at school with us. So we used, she'd get on a bus. She lived... I'd get on the 65 bus at Richmond. And Oliver Hayward would get on at the Odeon. And she'd get on a little bit further along outside the Bobby factory because she came down, down the hill. This was all of the 65. And then we had to change to the 213 at Kingston for New Malden. So yeah, there weren't many Coombe House because that was where Alan went, Coombe House. But it was funny that we had two people in Richmond that actually went to that school as well. I don't know where Guy Otten went. He might have gone to Tiffin's, Kingston Grammar. But where I saw the job for Fenwick, I don't know whether it was in the employment agency or whether I saw it in the paper. I can't imagine a job in Fenwick being down in a Richmond employment agency. It was like a junior secretary, really. I had to do all the typing, and there was another lady in the office, which wasn't very big, who was the PA, who couldn't type, but she used to answer the phone, and I used to do the typing, and we got on quite well. She lived at Upminster, and she used to go on holiday to Ibiza every year with the Upminster Travel Club. Even out in Portugal, where we've been recently, along where we sit and have the coffee along the walkway. In behind that is a flat, and that's the Upminster Travel Club, funnily enough. Yeah, Miss Bates, she was called. And then she left. She was getting married to this chap, Klaus. Whether that materialised, I can't remember. And then I had another lady come with me then. I had to write an article all about Ready Steady Go for Fenwick News. I can't remember what I wrote or how it came about or what I did, but I wrote it. It wasn't like a publication thing that went out to Smiths or whatever. No, it was an internal. Well, it gets put up on a news board in wherever, because we had what was called a Newcastle office, which was down in amongst where all the posh, nice dresses were. Fenwick's was in Newcastle, was the main one. So it would have gone up, a copy would have gone obviously up to Newcastle. Probably several copies up in their stuff. Every so often you'd get a lot of the Fenwicks would come down from Newcastle. But then they opened up a Fenwick's, they got a Fenwick's in Windsor. Oh, Louise goes in there when she goes up to London. Yeah. And Hanover Square was just by there, because Vogue, the magazine Vogue, operated out of Hanover Square. And we used to have to take clothes, because every day they had an advert in the Standard or the Evening News. So you'd have to take clothes over to Vogue, the photograph and sort out. And I often used to do that. Oh,
also tell us about the times when your mum used to bring close up to it?
Well, she only came up once when I was going on Ready Steady Go, and I must have been asked that day because I didn't have anything. I had to go obviously straight from work, and my mum came up on the tube with something for me to wear, and I think it might have been after then that they said I could take stuff, perhaps to save my mum coming all up from Richmond, which was quite a jaunt really, I suppose, and she would have had to pay to come up with it. Well, the time that I was on and everybody saw me, they used to watch it religiously, Auntie Hilda and them, down in Devon. And because of I went, and they'd seen it. Oh, we saw Christine! She was... So I was on, and I had a white and black dress on. But what happened to that, I don't know. I'm sure it was the white and black one I had. Yeah, it was Georgie Fane on the organ. And I was sat on the stage with... That's obviously one of the ones that's got rid of or thrown out or consigned to a chest somewhere, I should think. I'm surprised there weren't others, but you never know because, the camera would come round and you'd all have to move and then... And that, but...
And do you remember ever seeing the band Them?
Possibly. I probably wasn't into that then.
So tell me about how Ready Steady Go Scouts were looking for dancers. Was that at the same time?
Well, that was probably a wee bit later on when I was working at Fenwick's and met up with a friend called Carol Newman. Oh, that's Carol Newman. That girl there, Carol Newman, I worked with at Fenwick's. And this was a boy that lived down her road, and I'm just thinking that this might have been her surprise 21st birthday party that her mum arranged, which would have been in 1960 something or other. And Thursday nights Fenwick's were open till 8 o'clock because it was obviously a shop in London. And at 5 o'clock, or when we ever had our tea break, we were given half an hour instead of 15 minutes. And we were always given something to eat, not a meal, like a crumpet and cheese or something, but it was something. And then Carol and I used to, from there, we used to hit the streets of Piccadilly. Well, what we thought was hitting the streets of Piccadilly. And we used to, we may well have gone and had something to eat, or we might have gone to a coffee bar. But we used to go quite often to a disco called The Scene. That was with Carol on a Thursday night. Well, I don't know whether that stayed open or not.
Was the Whiskey A Go-Go above?
I never went to the Whiskey A Go-Go. That was upstairs at the Flamingo. You had to go up Windmill Street, past the Windmill Theatre. And then there was a car parking on the left, an NHC or MCH car park on the left, which we had to walk through. And then we had to go through these doors and downstairs. The club was sort of down under. I mean, it was really weird at the time. But anyway, it was really good in there. And it was all the music, like I'd gone on to Motown music. And that was where all the Ready Steady Go Scouts were to pick people out. Then to go on a Friday. And I got a ticket to go. So I used to go then every Friday. And at that stage it was at Holborn, which was quite easy to get to from Fenwick's. But then they decided to move it all over to Wembley. So that was not quite as easy, but they used to let me leave work early to go, and they used to let me borrow something to wear. So on a Friday afternoon I'd go and pick out something to wear, and it looked quite, well, I say glamorous, I don't know about glamorous, but I used to have false eyelashes and things on. I used to go over to Ready Steady Go, do my bit and dance and whatever, and then take the dress back. I probably worked on a Saturday sometimes. I can't remember, but I might have done. So I would take the dress back or take it back on the Monday. You'd have it on a little approval notice, so you'd have to get all that signed and what have you.
So this would have been in...
Well, this would have been 1965, 6, that era.
66 you joined Fenwick, didn't you?
I can't remember.
No, 65.
When did I go to college? I've got to work this out. 46 I was born, 66, well 66 I would have been 20. No, I'd left Fenwick by then. So it would have been 64, 65. And so, yeah, so I went to, I was on Ready Steady Go, I used to go every week, I used to take a different person. And then I palled up with a chappie who worked down the road at a shoe shop called Elliott's, and he was called Peter Standen, and he was a good dancer, and he was on it, and we used to go together then and have a dance and whatever, and he went on and he won something on Ready Steady Go, from only vague recollection. Well, I saw nearly everybody apart from the Beatles. They were the only ones that I don't think I ever saw. But I saw Otis Redding, Diana Ross, The Supreme, Martha Reeves, Stevie Wonder, Herman's Hermits was the first one. Was it Dave Allen, the chap that came round a spiral staircase?
Dave Berry.
Dave Berry, yes, Dave Berry. Oh, Dionne Warwick, Dusty Springfield quite a few times, Lulu, Sandy Shaw. I don't remember seeing Cliff Richard actually, because when it first started it was introduced by a chap called Keith Fordyce, but he left and then Cathy McGowan took over, and she used to have some lovely clothes, and she had a lovely suit, and I drove my mum mad to have this suit, which I had. And it had fluted sleeves, which I had. She had it in, I can't remember what colour she had it in, but I had it in white with a grey collar. But eventually I had it dyed burgundy. But I remember that, driving my mum mad for that. But I wore it quite a lot, it was lovely. Really, really posh. No, I wasn't making clothes at that time. Well, I might have made a few for myself, I suppose, but I never made any for the boutique that I used to make them for. That was a bit later on, after my Hammersmith Palais days. Peter Standen, who I used to go to Ready Steady Go with, we used to go to Hammersmith Palais every Monday night, because he used to live only a couple of stops away at Westbourne Park, and me and probably some others from Richmond would go up on the district line. We'd meet at Hammersmith Palais and go in and strut our stuff. And yeah, Peter, we did that for quite a long time. That was a Monday night. So Sunday afternoon Flamingo, Monday night Hammersmith Palais, Friday night Ready Steady Go. Although Ready Steady Go might have been coming to an end by the Flamingo.
When did that start? And how did you get involved in it?
I can't remember how I actually got involved in the Flamingo, but I think it was while I was at Fenwick's, and a girl came to work there called Mary Flack, who I really got on with, and she and her boyfriend used to go to the Flamingo on a Sunday afternoon, and I think she said, "Why don't you come?" Because it was only records and Blue Beat, what have you, and so I went along with my boyfriend at the time, who was called John Miller, and we used to go every Sunday afternoon. Well, most Sunday afternoons, and then we'd go for a coffee afterwards at a coffee bar called Coffee Ann, and that was also down through the road. It was like going down through a manhole and then into a sort of a room. Goodness knows how we got, well, I suppose we got down. They must have had some sort of step ladder down anyway. So that was the Flamingo.
And you used to go all-nighters there?
And then I used to go Sunday afternoons, but with John Miller, we often used to go to the Friday night all-nighter, where I saw Stevie Wonder and Tina Turner, or Dyke and Tina Turner, and Inez and Charlie Fox, saw Stevie Wonder. Lot of, and Georgie Fame or Chris Farlow would be the, like the resident band. So that was a Friday night. So quite what I did Saturday. Well, obviously went home, I suppose. When my mum thought, I don't know whether well, at some stage I think she thought I was staying at Carol Newman's. But obviously she must have realised I stayed at John Miller's, because I was, I went out with him for a couple of years. So that was all how the Flamingo started, and then I suppose we moved on really. I can't think where we moved on to from the Flamingo. I was working at Fenwick's at the time. But I don't quite know how I ended up there, but the Cromwellian, that was in South Kensington, so that would have been on the way back from London somewhere. And usually I was with a chap called David Bilton who lived at Feltham. He was a friend of Peter Standon's and the little group of people really that I knew at that particular time. And we obviously had to pay to go in, but I don't ever remember paying to go into these places. I must have done. And that was, upstairs was a casino and downstairs was like a disco. And anybody who was anybody would go to the Cromwellian. A lot of these sort of stars or musicians would go there probably after their gig. And I must have driven there because I remember driving home one night. I drove over a roundabout, not round it. But you used to drink and drive in those days. I think nothing of it.
So you were 21 when you had your first car?
I would have been 21, yeah. So it would have been that age, 21, 22.
1967, 68.
Yeah, I was working in Twickenham then anyway. Because David Bilton was working up near the station.
So 67,
that
68.
Big thing. Yes, that would have been about that sort of time. I mean, I only went there probably 3 or 4 times. But it was quite the place to go at that particular time. That was at South Kensington. And there was another club along there as well that I think I took you to, called Stripes. But then once I stopped working at Fenwick's and moved down to Twickenham, obviously all these things that I was doing in London really came to a halt. Oh, because then up the road a pub called the Bird's Nest opened in Twickenham, which was at that particular time way out of its league because you had telephones on the table, and if you fancied somebody you could ring them up from your table to table 5 or something and speak to them. And I was obviously working in Twickenham when all that happened, because I used to go with a girl, my friend that I paired up with, Sandy, from Twickenham to there, and her friends. I suppose we graduated from Eel Pie Island then to the Bird's Nest. And also opposite the Bird's Nest was another pub we used to go to called Henneke's. Well, when I was going out with John Miller, he had this very good friend, Leslie Peverett, and she had a cousin, I think was Carol, somebody or other, 64, 65, 66, that sort of. I'm not sure if was working down in Twickenham when I was doing this, but after I finished with him, I still used to keep in touch with Leslie, would pop over there because they were good fun, and she'd bought a shop in Fulham, and I made some clothes for this shop. I took them over to, oh yes, she said, I like those. And she bought them off me, and I made a couple of pairs of men's trousers and a suit, a man's suit. Not a lot, but just bits, because it was quite sparse what she was selling, because she was trying to build it up. So that was the story of Leslie and Carol and the Fulham Road. But I went over there one night, and because I crashed my dad's car up on the way back, which was not very good, but it wasn't my fault. But his car was a write-off. So we had to get a new car then. My dad didn't have a car till I was 13. He had a motorbike and sidecar, but he sold that to buy my mum a sewing machine so she could make our clothes. we were quite poor, I suppose, really. So she used to, yes, he sold it to, but he must have sold his bicycle as well, because he had a touring, a bike with the low handlebars. He must have sold that as well. And he bought a car to take his mum and dad about in when they were elderly. They lived in Motspur Park. Yeah, because my dad was born in Rains Park. So, well, Granny and Grandad must have lived in Rains Park. Because Janice lived in Rains Park as well. And then another time, this was a few years later, I must have contacted, or he contacted me, John Miller, and asked me what I was doing on Boxing Day, and I probably wasn't doing anything because I was without a boyfriend maybe. And I went to a party at the Kinks.
Ray Davis.
Ray Davis's house with him, and then I met this hairdresser who worked in Fulham, Palace Road, who put the silver streaks in my hair first of all, and introduced me to a little cafe called Smalls, which then we've been to. So this is all getting on to not long before I probably met you. Really. The Kinks. He was there. Oh yeah, well he was there. His wife was there, hosting. Quite how they knew him, I don't know. I never queried it. I just thought, oh, I'll go along for this, which was good. And then I ended up having my hair done a few weeks later. I don't know whether I had my hair done twice at this salon in Fulham, but anyway, whatever. That was all coming, that could have only been probably a year before I met you. Well, I was with a girl called June Harewood. I'm not sure quite how I met her, but anyway, she was probably a friend of a friend and whatever. And we used to go out once a week for a curry. We used to go, if there was something, we'd do that. Nice girl. And we went on a Friday night, we went to this Cheeky Pete's, which was a disco in Richmond under a ballroom called the Palm Court Hotel, which was also a beer cellar at one stage, and then the Palm Court Hotel with Joe Loss on that, and then Cheeky Pete's right out onto the river. And it was quite late on in the evening we were there, and I think she must have known you. Or you must have known her, or... No, she knew the chap you were with, I think. And we just got chatting, and I remember saying to you, your mum and dad aren't called Joe, George and Rose, and you said, oh yes. And you said, yours aren't Win and Half. Oh yes. Funny, isn't it, how things work out. But yeah, I used to go to Cheeky Pete's quite often. That was a Friday night. A bit older, obviously, there. Working at the union.
Well, it was 72, that was nice.
Well, we got married in 74 and I met you in...
72.
Was it January 72?
Yes.
Yes.
So you were 26 then?
Was I? Oh gosh. Nearly past it. When I used to go ice skating at Richmond, I'd moved on from doing free skating and I went back and I was doing ice dancing. And there was this fairly elderly gentleman there who he could do ice dancing. I mean, he wasn't brilliant, obviously, at the age he was, but he was very good. And it turns out his name was, I can't remember his Christian name, but his surname was Snapper. Well, Snapper, he built a bridge from Twickenham over to Eel Pie Island. I don't think it was called Snapper's Bridge because he also built a bridge on the other island, which was further up the Thames at Hampton, called Tags Island, and that actual bridge over was called Snapper's Bridge. But it was just strange that this Mr. Snapper, who had connections with Eel Pie Island, used to do ice skating as well. And I probably did a foxtrot with him at some stage. Can't remember, but I'm sure I did, because he would ask all the girls to dance. Maybe 62, that sort of, that's around, I can't be positive, but
no,
that sort of era.
Yeah, because your two certificates you got for ice skating were 58.
But they were for figure skating. They were for figure skating. This was when I went back for ice dance, which I didn't go back until I was about 16 or 14, 15, because I had to stop skating to do my O-levels, so that would have been when I was 16. And I took it up again when I was probably about 18. So Mr. Snapper, he could have been round that age. I really can't remember. I can picture him vividly. Yeah, I don't think I knew about his association with Eel Pie Island. Or Tags Island. Somebody obviously told me, must have told me about this Mr. Snapper. Or I put two and two together because I knew this chap was called something Snapper. Maybe we asked him, are you anything to do with Snapper's Bridge? And that's probably when we learned maybe that, I think that could have been it actually. We're asking him if he'd got any connection, because it's quite an unusual surname really, not like Smith or Jones. And I think then he probably told us that he built the bridge and then he done the one at, or has something to do with Eel Pie Island.